From 2017, if you look at the way the government handled the power sector, you will not be surprised what is happening today. The government has consistently engaged in propaganda and not doing anything. Now, first and foremost, these power sector agencies were doing well prior to 2017, before Nana Akufo-Addo came. So there are many issues that they are able to handle on their own. If you look at IPPs, they were able to pay them as prompt as possible, leaving only the legacy debt for extra to handle. You get my point? So if you take 2016, the IPPs were paid. There was no arrears carried over. So only the legacy debt was left. But since President Nana Akufo-Addo came to power in 2017, we've had challenges. If you look at ECG in 2016 made a profit, Grico in 2016 made a profit. So they were able to take care of their transmission network and box supply points and everything. So in that case, what you focus on is to settle the legacy debt and then to see how availability of fuel in terms of generation. Then you revamp ECG, that was the concession that was coming, to be able to stand on its feet and to perform well. That was the focus of President Mahama. But since this government came, things have not gone the way it should. All these agencies started making losses. So they are not able to even get money to do regular maintenance. PBS became a scandal. And therefore, ECG is not able to pay the independent power producers what the power supply to them. As we speak, whatever power is provided to ECG, they are able to pay about 40% of it. So that means 60% left is debt. And that is why you don't feel the ESLA, how effective it is, because debts are continuously mounting. Government is ranting, but at the same time are not able to procure fuel in terms of emergency. If there is a breakdown, gas supplies challenges, most of the plants are dual fuel plants. You should be able to switch to the other fuel. Government do not have money to procure fuel down for those things. Because DISCO has been suffocated by finances, they are not able to maintain their transmission line. And that is what we are paying for today as a country because of the inefficiency and the incompetence of President Nana Akufo-Addo government. That is what we are going through now. Now let me pick them one by one. One of the, is it 27th February, they said gas supply challenges from the FPS in Nkrumah. And that knocked out 1,000 megawatts of power. Now, let's go back to the table of what they rant about. They said we have excess capacity of more than 1,500 megawatts. And therefore, they are paying money that they need not pay. Now, if you have excess capacity of over 500 megawatts, and 1,000 megawatts is taken off, Ghanaians shouldn't suffer any power outages. Because you have excess of 1,500. So you bring that on board, it's still leaving 500 megawatts. Do you get my point?
Very much.
Yes. Then, 3rd March, they said WAPCO will do one or two things, and as a result, gas supply challenges. And therefore, they have to shed load. That should not be something the government should explain or Grico should explain to us. Why couldn't they switch to the other plants that we have? And government continue to claim we pay for not being used, power for not being used. Now that is the time we should have used that power. And we are not. Because it doesn't exist. It was that propaganda this government is playing with us. The recent one, they said they agreed trade. Mr. Obuasi agreed trade, and that affected it. Grico has been crying long before today that they are not able to get enough money to maintain the transmission network or the transmission infrastructure. The workers went on demonstration, and they were even, management of Grico said they should sign a bond not to reveal critical information from Grico. And we spoke about it. Government turned a blind eye at Grico, and that is what we are paying for today. These are incompetence of President Nana Akufo-Addo government, and that's what we are paying for today.
So all this thing that we are seeing today is something that started building up gradually.
Since 2017.
And some of them are also exposing some of the lies that were told a bit earlier.
Yeah, they have been exposed. Clear. Very, very big expose. Because that is what, even in our budget, they will go and 2017, 2018, 2019, claiming that we have so much power that we didn't need, and as a result, we are paying over $500 million a year. That is per annum. But we've been proven wrong with what they are saying. That you get 1,000 megawatts taken out and you cannot survive. This is complete lie. And if you want to actually know what we have, look at Grico daily schedule. You will realize that even the reserve margin, sometimes we don't have it to the level we have. 3 weeks ago, Friday, the last Friday, 3 weeks ago, the reserve margin was about 117 megawatts. Meanwhile, in reality, reserve margin should be about 80% of the peak demand, which was 3,090 as at 14 December 2020. So if you calculate it, it's about 680 megawatts. But the daily schedule, what we have as a reserve margin, is 170 megawatts. So you don't know that the government is lying. Propaganda. They are not doing any serious investment in the energy sector, both the power and then the petroleum subsector, upstream and downstream. Yeah.
This is interesting because this government inherited two things. Because our understanding is that the problems of the power sector were two-pronged. When John Mahama was in power, first one had to regeneration. That was solved clearly from the government's own narration. They even over-narrated it. Second one is the issue of finance, which the MPP even trumpeted when they were in opposition. That was supposed to have been dealt with by Ursula. So why are we here?
Yes. We are here because of the inefficiencies of policies pursued by government that has run down all the power sector agencies, as I indicated earlier. As at the time President Mahama was in power, all these agencies were making profits, and they could do a lot on their own without necessarily depending on government. Now, they are on their knees financially, so definitely will have challenges. ECG is not performing well, and ironically, when TDS took over for the short period, they were paying 66% of power supply to them. So that means there was an improvement in terms of repayment of the power supply. Since ECG took over, it has reduced to 40. That means there is a problem. If government has not met that TDS, ECG should have been on its feet by now. The selfish interests of President Nana Akufo-Addo and his family and friends has brought us this far in respect to our inability to clear off the legacy debt and then to ensure that we don't build up further debt.
Now we're seeing intermittent power outages because where I live, for example, and even where we are located, as we speak at Radio Gold, we can't tell when the lights will go off. It can go off at any time, and it may last between an hour to sometimes 6 to sometimes more. If what I don't know if you have any sources within the sector anymore, and if you can explain this, if you have any explanations as to why this is happening, if you've been offered any, if you've had any interactions as to why these things are happening.
There are two main issues there. One is might be as a result of power supply fluctuation. If a plant goes down, they are not able to immediately bring on board another plant. They will definitely shed. Some of them are localized outages due to the outdating of the transmission line, and other infrastructure like transformers and water. But what we are going through is really technical issues as a result of inadequate finance for the agency to do. That is the 1 hour, 2 hours one we explain periodically. Yes, but the main problem we have is finance. The main problem we have is finance.
And that is shocking because was it last year towards the elections when we were all talking about the fact that ECG was not being paid, Greco was not being paid? A statement was issued where ECG basically said that government has paid everything to them, that they have been paid all monies that are owed to them. Why should we have financial issues?
You see, that is why that time when government was ranting that they had paid their debt to ECG, I asked a question. Government come out with the total debt in the energy sector, and government never came forth with that information. Now, what government owes ECG is just a minute of the total debt that ECG owe the power sector agencies. You get my point? Now, if ECG owes about 2 billion, about 1.4 billion dollars to only IPP, that is IPP, so I'm not talking of Grid Power Authority, I'm not talking of DRA, I'm not talking of Gridco. And government owes ECG, which is just a chunk. If the money is paid to the IPP, that's small. Government pays it and goes around ranting that they have paid money to ECG. ECG, that money cannot pay any much of the debt owed to ECG. You get my point? What government needed to do was to make sure that ECG perform well, so that they can take care of their debt. When you pay your debt, it becomes something that they can use as working capital to make sure that the agency runs well. So government was making propaganda during that period. And when I asked them to tell us the total debt in the energy sector, they ran away.
For myself and everybody who is watching, who is in Ghana, who is experiencing this, the question that they are trying to answer is whether this will be temporal and will be solved and will be able to move on and perhaps things will become much more efficient. Do you see that the trajectory that we are seeing? Because we have a new minister now.
No, I cannot see that being resolved. If we don't take time between 20 and 2024, we'll be in serious power crisis.
After all that has been done?
Yes, because of the financial challenges of one, it will be difficult for government to provide the power that is needed. The second one is that there's growing demand for power. So with the growing demand for power and the financial challenges we're going now, you can see that the future is bleak. And if we don't take time, we'll run back we'll be going back to Dumsor. And government is not investing enough in terms of the infrastructure, transmission, and other things, distribution, to ensure that the integrity of the transmission and distribution systems is secured.
Well, Honorable, thank you for that. But let me lead you on a much more interesting